Master, I feel like I've seen him somewhere before.
Me too.
Master, it's time for you to fit the final pieces of this puzzle together. No matter how ugly the truth may be, we must confront it head-on and bring it into light.
Ike is right. I can feel it in my heart. The answer is burning in my chest. I don't want to believe it, but with these two pieces of evidence, it all adds up. Although it may only be a distant memory now, that image has been permanently etched into my mind. Am I really prepared to handle the truth behind it? I know what I have to do, but I'm too afraid to confront it.
You don't have to go it alone. Let's confront it, together. It's all been leading up to this moment. And you, hold the keys to unraveling this decade-old mystery.
I'd say it's time for you to uncover the truth, don't you think?
Linking his face to a memory of my drawing alone won't be enough. You need to hit him right where it hurts, with cold, hard facts that directly ties his identity behind that mask.
Yes. Yes.
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
The anticipation is half the fun.
And knowing is half the battle. Logic and reason will be my sword and shield as I cut and whittle your ego down to size. Starting with a statement that you let slip of the tongue just a few minutes ago that struck me as very peculiar.
I have little over half an hour before Tony starts serving the hot sandwiches with the fresh bread, so let's keep this brief.
In little over half an hour, the time will be 11 in the morning. It's at this time the proprietor of Tony's Hot Buns, Tony Macaroni, preps the lunch menu. His reputation for the quality of his food was well known to those in the community, even going as far as putting out fresh hot bread at precisely 11 every morning. A tradition to which he continues to carry to this very day. I knew someone I was close with that used to take me out to eat with him religiously when the bread was fresh. Which left such an impact on him that even 13 years on, he insists on being there at 11 sharp, even while he's backed into a corner. And that person is you, Kiryu Shodi.
You've done it. Your heart has finally come to terms with the truth. There's nothing left to hold you back. It's time to bring this monster's crimes into light, sink your teeth into him.
Exercise caution when aggravating my temper.
The only thing you should be exercising are your Miranda rights. Back to the matter at hand, in order to prove you were truly the one responsible, we need to go back to July 8th of '86, just mere days before the murders began. The two of us met up at Short Beach, and spent some time catching up with each other. Over the course of our talk, you invited me to join you for lunch at Kelly's during the upcoming weekend. Just shortly after, we were approached by two female individuals, both of whom I was well acquainted with. One in particular, we'll refer to as Ms. Lockhart, will become very important later. A brief altercation broke out between you and Ms. Lockhart as you tried to split her apart from me, and whether by accident or with intent, placed your hand upon her breast. You made no attempt to apologize to her for it after. As they were leaving, they directed snide remarks towards you. While they were no more in the right than you were, the difference between you and them was that they felt remorse for what they did. I could see clear as water that what they said left you perturbed. Even as I tried to get your attention, you just stood there staring laser beams at them. You didn't utter a word or acknowledge my presence. Nothing. And that was the last time I ever saw you again. But that wouldn't be the last that I'd hear from you. Just under a week later, I was awakened by an unexpected late-night call from Ms. Lockhart. Her friend, the same one who was with Ms. Lockhart at the beach 6 days prior, was with her during the call. At the time, her family had just fallen victim to murder. She was the sole survivor. About a minute or so into the conversation, the call was interrupted by a blood-curdling scream. The sound was close enough for the receiver to pick it up. Everything went quiet enough that I could hear panic breathing on the other end, implying that they didn't immediately run away. It's thanks to Ms. Lockhart's friend that I'm able to paint a picture of what happened next and begin to establish your true motives. According to her testimony, both women had witnessed a man with a hole in his back floating in midair. She made mention of a horrible noise the man made, which fits right in line with the scream I heard. Odie. You murdered a man in cold blood, right in front of them. The shock they experienced from witnessing such a gruesome scene was so bad that they couldn't run away, and you took advantage of that fact. And sadistically mutilated the dead man's corpse by ripping his arm off of his body using just your mind. However, this was no mere parlor trick. The force required to rip an arm off a humanoid without the aid of tools or other methods requires near feats of superhuman strength. However, you didn't act alone. You had the means necessary to perform this barbaric act, to which you testified in your own words.
My stand has the strength to rip out her vocal cords with the same energy as me unplugging my toaster in the morning.
That would fit the bill, wouldn't it? If your stand could rip a throat out with just its grip alone. It'd have the strength necessary to rip an arm out from its sockets without needing aid. And that was when they both ran for their lives. The last thing I heard right as the line cut off was an ear-ringing explosion, one that I could hear from my house. To my relief, they were not harmed and had managed to run through the tropical storm all the way to my house. But that raises a certain question. If you could kill a nameless man without an ounce of remorse and hesitation, why did you allow those two women enough time to flee from the scene? Out of all of your victims, you allowed these two specifically to live. Was it an odd display of mercy you showed them? Not in your wildest dreams. The reality behind your rampage is much sicker than that. The truth is, Odie,
You got sick, twisted pleasure from prolonging their suffering, and reveled in the hunt.
You're doing great. He may not show it outside, but the eco is rapidly crumbling down all around him. Don't stop now. Hit him with everything you have got.
the noose is finally starting to tighten around your neck, and I'll produce the final bits of evidence that will kick the stool out from under your feet. But first, let's pick up to when those two women arrived at the safety of my home. The call had been made to my house at 11:30 p.m. Over half an hour had spanned from the time of the explosion to when they stepped foot into my house. They had managed to lose you out in that storm, and for an additional 40 minutes, things were quiet, and there was no sign of danger. However, at 12:45, I had lost power to everything in my house. Moments later, something shattered the glass window in my living room. For over a full hour, your movements were unaccounted for, and the prosecution would like to present a theory as to why. Think back to the beach. Clearly the things Miss Lockhart said to you burrowed itself under your skin, and you didn't like it one bit. If we assume everything we've established about your motives up to this point is true, then allowing the women to flee was also premeditated. One in particular, you wanted to send a message to, written blood. If I were the killer, and had lost track of my prey in the darkness of that stormy and foggy night. Logically, where would be the best location to wait out at until your victim returned? Somewhere where they'd be safe, vulnerable, let their guard down. Odie, this is the particular residence that you had gone to.
Take that!
I have in my hands a newspaper clipping with the header of the brutal murder of Mary Jo Lockhart, which dates back to July the 15th, 1986, the same night you put your plans to action. Lockhart, that's a name that carries great significance, both historically and relevancy. The missing daughter referenced in this clipping is the same woman who you got into an altercation with at Short Beach. Heather Lockhart? Whether or not you were aware of her name is not the main focal point of this discussion. It's about the identity of whom it's associated with, and the circumstances connecting you to her. As part of your premeditation, you scoped out where each of the women lived in the town, and adapted your plans to capitalize on Heather's mother being alone in her house, so that by the time she returned, she would have front row seats to your masterpiece laid out for all to see. Naturally, this alone isn't sufficient proof to place you at the scene of the crime. But don't worry, I'm not done yet. I'm prepared to substantiate my claim. In order to do that, out of this final piece of evidence, lend me a hand.
Take that!
I'd like to draw our attention to this case file, which contains details pertaining to the incident. In particular, the autopsy report that was written for Mary Jo Lockhart. There's one part in particular that stands out. The cause of her death resulted from cerebral hemorrhaging from blunt force trauma to her head. In addition to that, her left hand was decapitated from her body, post-mortem. Which loops us back nicely to the moment I investigated my living room to find out what broke the window. As I rounded the corner, I was greeted by a gruesome discovery that would forever be burnt into my subconsciousness. The object that was thrown through my window was
the decapitated left hand of Anagapis.
The very last thing I can remember before the moment I lost consciousness was being blown away by an explosion that had gone off in the exact spot where the hand had landed. And there's only one person in this room that had the motive and the means to make that possible. The one who committed the crime.
Well, you. No alibi.
No justice.
No hope. It's time to pay for your crimes.
Take that!
You really are just as good as the stories say you are. Herbert,